Welcome to Food and Facilities, an online show for Planting to Processing Magazine, formerly West Coast Industrial Solutions Magazine. Watch what you read for safety, compliance, and innovation news within manufacturing, agriculture, food processing, and food and beverage industries. In this episode, we'll be discussing food science with Chau of Chau Time, and we will be discussing pallet-free sustainable transport with Isaac of Repsco Inc. Welcome to Food and Facilities. I'm Tara Sweeney, the Marketing Director for Planting to Processing Magazine, formerly West Coast Industrial Solutions Magazine. Make sure to subscribe at wcismag.com/subscribe for all safety, compliance, and innovation news with manufacturing, food and beverage, food processing, and agriculture. I'm here with my guest, Brian Chau, Principal of Chau Time. You can reach him at Brian, BRIAN, at Chau, CHAU-time, TIME.com, or you can give him a call at 669-223-8151. Brian?
Anytime it's Chau time, as long as I'm here. I'm Brian Chau, food scientist, fungal fanatic, and food systems analyst at your service. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining, Brian. Can you give our viewers and listeners a little background on the article that you contributed about working with food scientists?
Certainly. The article in of itself is a prelude to a book that I'm writing, How to Work with a Food Scientist. And the purpose of that article is really interlinking the ethos of Chau Time, the food science and the food systems aspect in of itself particularly. The article itself is really to help people understand whether it's post-harvest work, whether it's creating a new CPG product or food service product, the understanding of the working relationship between the stakeholders. So the clients, my clients, would be those who are wanting to transform, valorize, or create some sort of food products and have a system put into place to better communicate with those that are food scientists like myself or food technologists and product developers. In that sense, we're able to get something that's in somebody's head, a concept or a recipe, and actually put it onto a piece of paper, so that it creates a dialogue, if you will, and metrics that are easily understood, definable, and to be met. And along this process, this framework allows people to be able to better understand each other's needs and wants, rather than having to try to pry information out of somebody's heads, which is completely difficult since nobody can read anybody's minds. And in effect, be able to move in a process that is transforming from a conceptual component into something that's more commercial. The reason I write all of this is because I've worked with about 150 different brands in the food product development space, and there's a lot of difficulty in being able to understand what does a food scientist do. We're not magicians. There are rules and regulations that we as food scientists follow, and to put that into something that's easy to understand is actually more surprisingly difficult than I would originally imagine. And in writing this whole process, it allows me to basically say, we are more translators or designers, if you will, as food scientists, because there's a lot of jargon, there's a lot of technical processes that need to be redefined, and even simple, or I would say simple, but not necessarily simple to everybody, ideas and concepts such as flavor, which is really, really subjective, transforming that into something that's more objectifiable. That in of itself is a translation. So the whole process of the article is my hope that everybody who reads it would be able to best understand how to best approach and talk, provide critical feedback to a lot of other people that are specialized in food science in of itself. And the hope is that process will provide an iterative, productive, and constructive feedback that allows for better products to be constructed. And in that way, it allows us as clients to be able to have a little bit more ease because we're able to better communicate our ideas. And then from the food scientist perspective, or the food product developer's perspective, have less stress because we're actually being able to meet certain metrics and figure out how to prioritize. Because at the end of the day, the technical component is not as hard as it is to actually relate and be able to communicate what are the issues and how to make a better decision from those issues in moving forward in product development. Otherwise, we'd be stuck in going around in circles, trying to figure out what are we going to do? Is this feasible? And what I always tell a lot of of my clients is the question to ask is not about feasibility, about if something could be done. As entrepreneurs, a lot of them are able to do it. The question to ask is actually how much will it cost and when will it be done in terms of project management. So overall, very highly condensed work, but hopefully it will be more fleshed out in the book to come.
Do you find it easier to help with product development if the client that you're working with has a better fleshed out idea of their brand identity?
The brand identity component in of itself is very, very useful. That tells me that the brand owner is able to do the market research and understand their target audience. I wouldn't say it's not necessarily easier or harder if the brand owner knows or doesn't necessarily know what they really want to do. I think at the end of the day, if they're able to be open-minded in terms of figuring out the process as we're going through the rounds of development, if you will, then that open dialogue is a much easier approach than to have somebody who's really stuck in their ways in terms of like, this is exactly what I want, but not necessarily understand the full context, the fundamentals, or the system in of itself that has been institutionalized for hundreds of years. That's extremely hard to do.
What is something that you wish more people knew about product development?
My next article essentially would be to talk about the 3 rounds of development. And it goes into a little bit more detail because essentially what my first article is talking about is here's the framework, here's how we can communicate, this is how we're going to understand priorities and parameters and be able to move forward. And then in the 3 rounds of development, it actually ties everything into project management in a much holistic manner. And that would allow us to best understand how to go from concept development, which is somebody's idea or concept, prototype off of that concept, and then move from that conceptual stage into something that's more formulation work. And formulation work is really fine-tuning that recipe so that we are able to understand what are all the different parameters that go into that recipe in of itself, and why is that recipe very important? Why is that the most economical or the most technically feasible? And then the 3rd round of development is to really match that with the contract manufacturer for scalability purposes. And really that is the difference between a chef and a food scientist, because a chef would operate more under manual labor and scalability. And you will have a food scientist that would operate under unit economics that are much larger in scale and focus more on the engineering perspective than the manual labor per se. And so it's not to say that there's any right or wrong way between the perspective of a chef and a food scientist. It's more of what is the end product that is being produced and how do you actually get to that end goal. And so that actually is that slight difference in perspective actually is dramatic in its approach in the final formula or recipe, if you will.
What's your favorite part of product development?
Originally, it was sampling a lot of the food products. But at this point, having tried many different concepts that aren't necessarily the most flavorful, I think for me, it's being able to walk through the client and be able to have that space and time to see the growth with them. So aha moments when we're all seeing everything come together is a beautiful journey, and see the client be able to understand. Oh, I finally understand what it takes to be able to scale and the importance of the research and development perspective, and the whole journey, the whole process in of itself is very much time consuming, but one that allows them to figure out how to better create their OKRs or KPIs or metrics to best understand how to move forward in being able to achieve their end goal is to build that particular brand or ingredients. And so that interaction with the client is actually very enlightening, fulfilling, and challenging in the entire process.
And you mentioned your book earlier. Do you want to give our listeners and readers a little more information on that?
Certainly. So the idea of how to work with a food scientist is not so much about the technical perspective, it's about how to relate and understand what a food scientist is thinking, and how they operate, how they're trained. And that would hopefully allow people to best understand how to work with a food scientist. And in essence, these are 4-year degrees minimum if you're just looking at a bachelor's, or more if you're looking at master's or PhDs. So there's a lot of intense training, and it's a very complex system that food scientists operate under. And so it's not as easy to just say, I just want to hire a food scientist to do one exact job, when there's multiple disciplines under food science in of itself. A food scientist could be a sensory scientist, could be a product developer, could be a microbiologist, a process authority, an analytical chemist, and it goes on and on. And so one particular role of the overarching food science name may not be applicable to the actual job description or the role that the brand owner's trying to anticipate for. So in that sense, the book would hopefully demystify and be able to connect with the prospective clients so that they're able to best understand how to interview, screen through the prospective food scientists that they want to work with, and be able to communicate best when they're in that particular environment working with that particular food scientist.
And if our listeners and readers wanted to reach out to you to work with you on their product development, how would they best reach you?
They can definitely reach out to me at Brian, BRIAN, at Chau, CHAU, time, TIME.com. Unfortunately, Chau Time, without the hyphen, was already taken. So somebody beat me to it. But the hyphen really is to emphasize that there is Chau and time. And I could also be reached at 669-223-8151, or you can visit the website chau-time.com.
Thank you for taking your time to talk with me today, Brian. I hope you have a good day.
Likewise, you too. Take care.
Bye. Reach out to California League of Food Producers at clfp.com or give them a call at 916-640-8150. They help with labor laws, water regulations, Proposition 65, labeling requirements, regulating chemicals, drinking water, transportation, greenhouse gas, and cap and trade. They help bring California's goodness to the world. And my next guest is George Isaac, Sales Director for Rubsco Incorporated. You can reach him at Isaac, GISAAC, at Rubsco, REPSCO.com, or you can give him a call at 209-312-3700. I'm here with my guest, George Isaac of Repsco Incorporated, and he's here to talk about how they're helping manufacturing and food processing being more sustainable. George?
Yes, good morning, Tara. Thanks for having me. It's great to be on with you. Just a little background about Repsco. We were incorporated way back in 1971. Our owner took over in the late 90s. And the company was based initially in Denver, Colorado, and it's actually one of the pioneers when it comes to slip sheets. Slip sheets actually were introduced first by the Coors Brewing Company, back in the late 70s. So there's been quite an evolution. Slip sheets have been in the market for many, many years. Rubsco moved to California in late 2016, early 2017 to really try to take advantage of the California market, all the food and agriculture that we have out here, and the ability to really introduce the product. We're located on Claus Road in Modesto, just over the border into Riverbank. For folks that are familiar with this part of the Central Valley, we actually occupy space in the former munitions depot that was owned by the U.S. Army back in the just after the war. So we occupy about 55,000 square feet in that depot, and that's where we do all of our manufacturing. For us, and when I speak to prospects, there's really two key differentiators for us that I think separate us in the industry. One is that we manufacture here in California, and that's really a critical thing in terms of being able to help businesses here in California with costs going up, especially with freight going up. It's nice to be here in the state and to be able to help save our customers some costs. The other key differentiator is that our product is 100% recyclable. And that's really important to a lot of our clients and frankly, businesses that are environmentally conscious. They want to know where this product is going. And so we're not putting it in any landfills. What we do simply is when we sell to our customers, once those slip sheets are being used up, we actually take them back and then we grind them down into resin and we make more sheets out of them. So it's a very kind of simple process. We've also got a program called the Green to Gold program, where we can actually set up with our customers the ability to buy back those sheets, because at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want those sheets back so we can, reuse them. And in this case, the customer can actually derive some money out of that. And it's become just a great program. And it essentially what it does, Tara, it closes the sustainability loop for us. And that's really important. Reducing that carbon footprint is really critical. When it comes to actual plastic slip sheets, there's people out there obviously that have never heard of that term, but essentially it's a viable alternative to a wood pallet. So anybody that manufactures and ships a product anywhere in the United States or across the country, in most cases is using some form of a wood pallet or possibly a plastic pallet. And so our goal is really to talk about how we can improve the process within a warehouse environment as we talk to logistics and supply chain and production folks, and how we, again, improve that process and also reduce some of their costs. The cost for a wood pallet in today's market, well, it might be more tomorrow because the cost of lumber is going up so crazy. But essentially, a cost of a brand new pallet could be anywhere from $15 on up, depending on the type of wood you use. A lot of companies that purchase a lot of pallets purchase what we call refurbished pallets, and there's companies out there that recover those, make them whole again, and then sell them. And those can go for $5 or $6 a pallet. Our slip sheets generally on average about $2. So there's that really inherent cost. But more than that, it's, again, the ability to really decrease the bulk inside the warehouse. Slip sheets take up less space. They're adverse to water and humidity and heat, insects, all things that happen within a warehouse environment, not to mention a forklift driver accidentally bumping into a wall and breaking the wood pallet. So that's really important. Again, reducing bulk inside the warehouse. What does that mean? It means more product that the customer can put in his warehouse. And the same can be said when they load the truck too. more product inside the truck using the slip sheets as opposed to the pallet. And that's really a key thing. So those are the two huge differentiators for us, and really has allowed us to really start to grow here in California.
What are some changes you've seen in the industry during the pandemic?
It's been kind of interesting because had been deemed an essential business because we work in the food industry. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, about some of the verticals that we touch, but we're able to stay open all of 2020. And we really began to just see an increase in our growth. Again, I think a lot of companies, especially during 2020, were looking for ways to decrease their costs, lower their costs. And so they saw this as a real cost-saving mechanism, again, as a way to be kind of environmentally friendly. So we saw some pretty good positives, during 2020. And then slowly, as we come out of the pandemic, we've been able to kind of come face to face with a lot of our clients as well. And that's really kind of important. It's one thing to kind of talk about slip sheets and maybe show some pictures of them. And it's another thing to actually, meet with folks inside the warehouse, bring over a sample and have them really kind of touch that sheet. And that's really important because, again, all of our sheets are custom made, length, width, thickness, from a 20 mil sheet, which is fairly thin, but can hold up to 2,000 pounds of product, to a 100 mil sheet, extremely durable. And so people kind of have a concept in their mind and may try to kind of Google what the sheet looks like, but until they actually physically have it in their hands or put it down on the floor, it's quite another thing. And I think for your listeners and viewers, it's important to really kind of know how the slip sheet is used. So if I can, I'll go through kind of 2 or 3 different scenarios. Initially, I said it's a replacement for a wood pallet. And so, again, it's on the ground. The product is loaded on and then eventually strapped and put together that way. And so to pick up from the ground, the forklift has to have a special attachment called a push-pull unit with actually special forks that go under the sheet and then grab on both sides. So a normal pallet size is 48 by 40. And so when we produce a slip sheet for a client that wants those specifications to simulate that pallet, we'll add 3 inches on each side, Tara. And that's the ability for the push-pull to grab both ends and then pick up the load and then load it into the truck. So that's one way to use it, and obviously a very common way. Second way is some customers may want to keep that pallet, but they want something to cover it before they put their product on. And that will happen a lot with companies that just package their product in maybe bags. So dog food, you don't want tears in the dog food during transit that may pop up from the wood pallet, so you put that cover on. Anything in bags, rice, things of that nature, that's where the pallet cover can become very important. Thirdly, it could also be used as a separator as you build the load. And some clients want that, as they put that together. And then finally, it could be used as what we call a top cap. We've got several dairy companies that we work with here locally that want that top cap to make sure that no dust or their product is not touched by any elements when it sits inside the warehouse or when it goes into transit. So there's various uses for that. And I think I also talked earlier about the different industries that we serve. So let me kind of quickly go over those. Any business in the food industry, and that runs a very wide gamut, is a client for us. So we deal with dairy, we deal with anything in cans, vegetables, anything like that are all potential clients. Beverage is also a big client for us. Again, that's important. And then, of course, that includes the wine industry, which I think is an emerging market for us. And of course, we sit here in the Central Valley in the midst of all these vineyards and these wonderful wineries. And so there's great opportunity for us. And then finally, the nut industry is also an emerging industry for us as well. We've got some great clients in that space, and we'll continue to talk to more to kind of introduce that product. It's really far-reaching. I mean, cement, fertilizer, chemicals that are stored in boxes. I think you can just kind of let your mind go. There's so many opportunities, but just the basic of anything that's manufactured and is shipped out, again, is a potential client for us.
What's something you wish more people knew about the industry?
I wish and hope that they know that it's a sustainable product. Wood pallets, as you know, they're not sustainable at all. And so we do more than talk about it. We live it every day. It's very important to us, and we want to make sure that people really kind of understand. We're not putting the stuff in the landfill. We're not discarding the plastic. There's some misnomers about use of plastic today. Businesses want to, recycle those products and everything. And so it's important for us. And when we engage a prospect, that's something that I certainly, talk a lot about because it's good for the environment, but there's so many other advantages to closing that loop and really providing a high quality product. Over the years, we've emerged as the industry leader. And so we believe we are offer the most premium product in the industry. It's a very simple product with a lot of nuances, but it's something that I think all manufacturers should, take a look at. And so we're excited to really drive this within the state. And we think there's a lot of opportunity. The one thing we talked briefly about earlier was freight. And to me, that's another certainly selling point here in the state. We've got a lot of customers who simply take one of their trucks and pick up their product at our dock. And they may be driving, 25, 30, 40 miles away. And so that's something that's we're also very cognizant about, and we can really help, companies here in California. Our nearest competitor, we've got one in Texas and we've got one in Illinois. And so if there's a company out here in California that's purchasing sheets, there's an immediate cost savings right off the get with freight. The cost of fuel is rising, as are a lot of other commodities in the marketplace. And so we feel well positioned to really grow, and we're excited about the future.
Speaking of the future, does Rubsco have any future goals that they're currently working on?
I think the goal is certainly to continue to expand. Right now, we run, to give you folks an idea, we run 2 lines in a 24/5 operation with 3 shifts. And so we, produce probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 700,000 pounds. Our goal is to get up to 1 million or more. And we're also poised right now to even add a 3rd line. And that's something that it's ready to go, as we, bring on some clients. And so we're certainly not afraid to engage a large manufacturer. We've certainly got the wherewithal to help them. And so that's really kind of in our expansion plans. We've also looking at developing maybe some other kind of products associated with the plastic slip sheet, a plastic tear sheet, which will rival fiber tear sheets. So a lot of people that we engage will say, yes, George, we use a plastic slip sheet. Well, they really don't. They use actually a fiber slip sheet, which is essentially paper. It's deemed as a one-time use, Tara, and it's not completely 100% recyclable. And so we're looking at an alternative of a plastic tear sheet. So that's on the horizon. One thing that we have already developed is, and it's really been the result of questions from our clients about, well, George, if I don't have a push-pull attachment, how do I, utilize your sheets? And so we've developed now what we call a master sheet. Again, a little thicker, probably about 40 or 50 mil, and it comes up on both sides with holes, bands where the straps go in. And so the product now could be loaded on the master sheet like that, strapped in, and then a regular forklift can go under that master sheet. So now not only can it be put into the truck, but now your end users can actually take them off without having a special attachment. So that's probably our most recent kind of addition to our standard slip sheet. So we're just trying to look at different ways that we can assist customers. Everyone's got their own idea of how their process works. You know, when we go into these facilities, we look at that process, we look at the palletizer, we look at the way the product is being put together and then loaded, and just trying to offer some better alternatives, some environmentally alternatives, friendly alternatives, and frankly some cost savings. Again, some things coming up on our horizon that we're pretty jazzed about.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close for the day?
Other than if anyone's got any questions for me, they can reach me via email at gisaac@repsco.com. And they can also reach me via cell at area code 209-312-3700. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Would love to come out to the facility and actually meet and provide some samples for folks. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and I'm here to do that.
For meeting with me today. I hope you have a good day.
Yeah, thanks, sir. Appreciate the time. Take care.
Likewise. And reach out to our sponsor, Safe Food Alliance. When it comes to safe food, they've got you covered. You can drop in or see them at their food safety center in Kingsburg, California, or visit them online at safefoodalliance.com. And now we will have a moment of silence for our Black Lives Matter community.